Hey, welcome in, everybody, to the Farzy Show. My name is Mark Farzetta. The show is presented by Steven Singer. Steven Singer Jewelers. Nice to have you along for the ride today. Hope you guys just had a beautiful rest of your Tuesday. And if you're a Phillies fan, you absolutely did. What a wild game that was in South Philadelphia last night. Taijaun Walker gets you 7 scoreless. The last 3 Phillies starting pitchers, all 7 innings, and at most 1 earned run. 1 earned run. Suarez got it started on Sunday. Aaron Nola capped it back on Monday. And then yesterday, Taijaun Walker. So the bar is set. The bar is set, Zach Wheeler, for a 6:05 start time today. 7 innings. That's what you got to do. At most 1 earned run. At most. We also accept no earned runs. So there you go. Congratulations to Phillies' 4th win in a row, 2nd series win in a row. That's already in their back pocket. We'll talk about the Tigers like we talked about the Nationals. We'll get into the game last night. And Rob Thompson's, can you call it brilliance? Because he's at least got one guy going in this lineup again. I mean, Nick Castellanos has been fine last night, not so much. But when it comes to Kyle Schwarber at the top of the order, that has worked out rather well for the Phillies. Trey Turner, step back last night, a little bit of a step back last night, but I still got confidence in old Trey Turner. So we'll get into that conversation about Rob Thompson's lineup, about this starting pitching. And then Lane Johnson addressed the media yesterday, and he talked about how his recovery has been good from the abductor injury that he suffered and the surgery that he had, fighting his way back from that, how great it is to have Jason Kelce back for another year, the maturation process of Cam Jurgens, what sticks out to him about Cam Jurgens, now his new right guard, going to be playing to his left there on the right side of the offensive line of scrimmage. So he got into a lot of things yesterday. And their new linebackers coach talked about his first conversation with Nakobe Dean, E.J. Elliott, out of Temple University. Well, I should say most recently out of Temple University, as he was a coach over there. He addressed the media yesterday as well. So plenty to get to when it comes to the Birds. And a little programming note for those of you that are watching on the Jacob Media YouTube channel. I will be on with Derek Gunn later today on Sports Take. I'll be filling in for my buddy Rob Ellis today from 12 to 2. So, more of me today. Oh, and then I also have the Phillies postgame responsibility. So busy day for me. I was going to mow the lawn today, but got the call yesterday from old Krause, and he said, hey, man, can you fill in for Robbie? I said, I'm your Huckleberry. So here I am. Well, there I'll be, I should say. So anyway, let's start it off with the Philadelphia Phillies. If you watched the postgame show yesterday on Jacob Media, then you've heard me say this. If you didn't watch it, well, then this might be a little bit redundant, or this won't be redundant. Every great pitcher, really, I think every pitcher in Major League Baseball, I shouldn't say every great, but every Major League pitcher has that one pitch that they've rode to their career. Like they've been able to get to the Major League Baseball level of play with this great pitch. They say, this is my out pitch. I believe for Aaron Nola, that is his 2-seam fastball. The way that it is cut in on hitters has been fantastic. That's how he has gotten in the same conversation as the Cy Young Award. That's how that's happened in his career. That's how he's gotten to a World Series. That's how he's been an ace on this staff. Him and Zach Wheeler, obviously. And this year, they've left a lot to be desired. Taijaun Walker, though he's never been mentioned in the Cy Young conversation, he's a Major League pitcher that has been able to use that splitter to get to this level. That has been his out pitch. That has been how he has dominated any outing he's ever dominated, how he has gotten good, productive innings. He has been able to ride that splitter to have success. Last night, he had that pitch on an absolute string. He had it on a string. He could do anything he wanted with that, including strike out 7 of the 8 batters he struck out. The only other strikeout I think he got that wasn't on a splitter was a 4-seam fastball that was just taken over the middle of the plate, and it was looking. Everything else was chasing the splitter. It was a thing of beauty last night for Taijaun Walker. And after Ranger Suarez's start on Sunday, after Aaron Nola's start yesterday, where he took a no-hitter in the 7th inning. Aaron Nola on Monday took a no-hitter in the 7th inning, and the more impressive pitching performance was Taijaun Walker yesterday. Now, you can make the argument, well, Nola had 4 more strikeouts. Yeah, sure, but this guy only allowed 2 hits. 2 hits in the entire ballgame for himself. The 7 innings that he pitched out there. It was remarkable to watch what he was able to put together in that game yesterday. In the first inning, getting 3 straight batters, not just to strike out, but to chase the same pitch, all of which out of the strike zone, as you would assume, with a splitter just dying at the plate. And he was able to ride that for the entire game. Very impressed with what you saw from our man Taijaun Walker yesterday. And one of the other things was he didn't have a lot of run support, as we all know. It was a 1-0 victory. To see Kyle Schwarber go up there in the bottom of that first inning and look like he golfed a pitch out of the strike zone, it wasn't even in the strike zone, but golfed that pitch into the right field bleachers. I thought he flew out to right field. When I saw that pitch and I saw him swing at it, I thought it was a high fly ball, maybe midway in right field, not deep, not shallow, and he just golfed that pitch into the right field stands. And that's some man strength right there for you. That is some man strength right there for you. Rounds the bases. All right, we're going to have another great offensive performance here. Then hopefully Taijaun Walker can do a lot of what he did in the first inning. He'll be good to go. That was it. Phillies pitching dominated. Bats really couldn't do much for you. You had Sir Anthony Dominguez come in the 8th inning. Then you had Craig Kimbrell come in the 9th inning to close out that save. And he got he struck out the side to handle his business there. A lot of high heat, both from Sir Anthony Dominguez in the 8th inning and then the 9th inning. A lot of high heat from Craig Kimbrell as well. So we can't talk about how great the lineup has been because they only got 3 hits last night. But what you can talk about is getting this starting pitching right. If you're finally figuring this out, I mean, we talk about figuring out the lineup all the time. We talk about Rob Thompson putting players in their most comfortable positions and seeing a guy like Trey Turner go out there yesterday or 2 days ago and have the day that he had, and then yesterday take the 0 for 3 day at the plate. We can talk about pushing the right buttons as far as the lineup goes. But when it comes to the rotation is just, it's set. It gets jumbled when now you don't have Nola and Wheeler pitching after each other. You don't have Suarez in that same rotation there. And that same, it's not set up like we saw at the beginning of the year with Nola, Wheeler, and then hopefully Suarez when he comes back. It's all kind of jumbled up right now, and hopefully that changes in the not too distant future. But with this rotation, you need the guys to figure it out on their own. Caleb Cotham, the pitching coach, can only do so much. If Nola finally figures it out, Wheeler finally figures it out. And if you go by his track record, today's supposed to be a good day for Zach Wheeler. It's not supposed to be another blow-up performance by Zach Wheeler where it only lasts 3 2/3 like he did in Game 1 against the Nationals. But watching Zach Wheeler today, I am really eager to see if he can keep this nice little streak going by Phillies starting pitchers of going at least 7 innings in these games. Now, the earned run thing, well, that'll yet to be determined. And I think if he's not allowing earned runs, there's obviously more likelihood that he's pitching into that 7th inning. But if you could finally figure out this lineup and then finally figure out this rotation and have these guys figure it out for themselves as your starting pitchers, that's some great things are about to happen for the Phillies. And it won't just be Kyle Schwarber in June that we're talking about getting hot. We're talking about this Phillies team as a whole getting hot at the right time. Now, it's all under the caveat. It's all under the idea that it was the Nationals that you took 2 of 3 from, and now it's the Tigers that you've at least taken 2 of 3 from, and they'll go for the series sweep today. For the people that want to play fun police, I don't care. Look, we could talk about get-right games. We could talk about get-right series. We could talk about that. I just want them to win. And if they need to beat the Nationals twice, if they need to beat these Tigers at least twice or hopefully 3 times, right? Then I am here for it. And then we'll see if they have actually gotten right in these get-right series against a team like the LA Dodgers, who are up next starting on Friday for a nice weekend series in South Philly. Look, I'm tweeting out optimism. I'm tweeting out stats right there of the Phillies, their starting pitching with the 7 innings and all that stuff. I'm tweeting out. People are like, well, the Dodgers are around the corner. Yes, I know the Dodgers are around the corner. And I want the Dodgers around the corner. You know why? Because if they beat the Dodgers and if they have 7-inning performances against the Dodgers and Kyle Schwarber is hitting home runs off the Dodgers and Nick Castellanos continues to hit against the Dodgers and then you get a guy like Trey Turner hitting against the Dodgers, then you know what? It's not just about getting right anymore. You have gotten right And that's what a lot of people need, I think, at this point to really believe that this Phillies team could be a playoff team. Because I still believe they could be a playoff team. I still have confidence they're going to make the playoffs. Kyle Schwarber was interesting after last night's game when they asked him about his June numbers. They put up the stats last night in like 450 at-bats, whatever. He's got 50 home runs in the month of June in his career. That's incredible. That's one hell of a month. He goes, I wish it wasn't like this, but I'm kind of glad it's like this because at least now he's in June. And he said, yeah, I don't understand it. I don't get it, but this is just how it goes. I would say it's just a coincidence because I don't feel any different, but you can't deny it when it's 50 home runs for your career in the month of June. Last night wasn't a good example of the bats figuring it out. They did not look great last night in a bullpen game for the Detroit Tigers. We'll go through some of the play-by-play of the game, but there was one inning in particular that I'll get to as my allergies just kicking my ass this morning. I don't know what it is. I wake up and I'm like, oh, my allergies bother me. I take an allergy pill and I'm okay. And then I start doing the show and they just like, oh, you thought you were okay today? You're not so great today. But Kyle Schwarber hit the 91-mile-per-hour fastball, middle of the plate, out for a 1-0 lead in that first inning. And then later in the ball game, this was insane. In the fifth inning, I really thought the Phillies were going to start to tack on some runs because this was wild. You had in the top of the fifth inning, Baddoo leads off by getting the ground out to Sosa at left, or foul out to Sosa at left. Then Short gets a single, Cabrera gets a double, and then you walk Rogers on 8 pitches. You have the bases loaded with 1 out. And I thought, okay, well, this is where you're going to see Taijaun Walker be Taijaun Walker and not really, pitch well anymore, basically. He gets Marisnick to strike out, chases the low splitter again, and then he gets McKinstry to fly out to center field. So he gets out of that bases loaded 1 out jam. It's still 1-0 Phillies. You go into the bottom of the fifth inning. Bryson Stott leads it off with that little chopper, okay? He leads it off with a single. He's going on the pitch to Brandon Marsh. I guess the hit and run was on. Brandon Marsh not only lines out, like this should have been first and third with nobody out. Instead, it's Brandon Marsh lining out to Short at second base, catches it, fires. He had another like Francisco Lindor, a little toss to first base, and he doubles up Bryson Stott. So instead of first and third with nobody out, you have nobody on and 2 outs. So quite the change there. So then the next batter is Drew Ellis. Drew Ellis goes up there, and he has a line drive to left field. And I think this one's going off the wall, and Drew Ellis is going to get himself a double, so at least you have a runner in scoring position and, a chance to do something good here. Drew Ellis lines the left field, and Baddoo runs over there, dives, makes a catch. 2 diving catches to get no runs across the plate, take runners off the bases by the Detroit Tigers. So point for them. In the fifth inning there. That's when I thought they were actually going to pounce on them, and they were unable to do so, unfortunately. Now, there's something else I want to get into in this game real quick before we get to Paul Hudrick is our guest today, by the way. And Paul is going to break down everything with Nick Nurse and all that. But what I thought was wild, in that first inning, Schwarber hits the home run. Nick Castellanos grounds out to Short, and then Bryce Harper steps to the plate. Battles back from an 0-2 count to a full count. Actually got lucky in that full count because that third ball was definitely a strike, but whatever. Works the full count. Then he steps up, hits a long fly ball, deep center field, out. Warning track power. Bryce Harper goes into the dugout. And if you saw it on NBC Sports Philly, if you didn't, it's on my timeline on Twitter. Bryce Harper goes up there, or goes into the dugout, takes his helmet, and throws it against the wall. Looked like he had great velo. Looked like he had a great spin rate. He just whipped that thing against the wall. It bounced back to him. He either caught it or picked it up again, and then threw it against the wall again. So the good news is the elbow looks strong. I guess the also good news is for my friend Ruin today on Twitter. Joe hit me up and was like, "Hey, at least it's fire. You need to see some fire from these guys." I love seeing fire from Bryce Harper. I don't ever have to see fire from Bryce Harper. I know the guy's fuming. I know the guy has 1 speed. So I watched that and I go, okay, well maybe now you can have Kyle Schwarber as your DH, and maybe now you can put Bryce Harper in the outfield because the arm looks fine. But we'll see where it goes from here. We'll get into the pitching matchup a little bit later, but right now, let me tell you about my man Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers, the other quarter of 8th and Walnut, right there on Jewelers Row. For over 40 years, Steven's been in the love business in Philadelphia, helping people get engaged and fall in love. So, ladies and gentlemen, do what I do. When it comes to all your jewelry purchases, trust the one man with the perfect price. Steven Singer Jewelers. One place, one price, the perfect price. Online at IHateStevenSinger.com. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. Without further ado, let's jump on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line, talk to our friend, Mr. Paul Hudrick. Joining us right now, our friend from Liberty Ballers, ladies and gentlemen. I'll call him the editor-in-chief. I think that's good, right? Right, Paulie? That's editor-in-chief. I like that. Yeah, like commander-in-chief, editor-in-chief, kind of the same thing. Hey, just real quick, before we even get to the interview here, here's your Twitter for people to follow you on Twitter. Make sure you guys do, at Paul Hudrick, of course. We'll get to this article that you wrote recently for Liberty Ballers, the 5 takeaways from Nick Nurse's introductory press conference. But I did tell my audience, Paul, that your mom, Katie, the lovely lady that she is, has been a tremendous supporter of my career. And right before we hit record on this interview, not only did I get to see your mom and meet your mom here virtually, I got to see your devastatingly handsome son, Miles, as well. Let me tell you, that mom of yours, man, she's a pretty lady. She's a pretty lady, a sweetheart and a pretty lady.
I tell you what, I won't reveal her real age for the audience, but I will tell you she does not look anywhere near that age. I have fantastic genes in our family. We've gotten, my sister and I are just, we are very, very lucky, and obviously our assorted children, very lucky with the genes we got.
Yeah, which is crazy because you're only 15 years old, which is wild. I mean, you look, I know that people think you look older, but you're only 15. Paul, I need help here. Yesterday, now I do want to say that I said maybe we'd get your mom on the show, but she had her hands full with Miles, so I wasn't about to broach the question. So here's where we're at right now with the 76ers. First off, this is a phenomenal article that you wrote for Liberty Ballers when it comes to the 5 takeaways for Nick Nurse and his introductory press conference. A lot of interesting things came out of that press conference. One of the things I thought was really interesting, and you talked about his relationship with Joel Embiid, but how does it apply to what Nick Nurse has done so often in the past with running guys into the ground? And how does it apply to Joel Embiid now when you have to manage his workload like never before? How do you think that relationship pans out between these two?
Well, I'll say this. Joel Embiid, for all the stuff, like, load management and all that, it's been abundantly clear he's not a fan of it. He doesn't like it. So I think him and Nick Nurse will be on the same page for a lot of that kind of thing. But I'll say this, too. I think the Sixers have a medical staff in place that they really trust with this kind of thing. There is actual science behind it. I think they are going to manage Joel Embiid the best way humanly possibly they can. And I would say this too, Jimmy Butler's having a pretty darn good year. And I think it would be fair to say he kind of coasted through the regular season and then turned it up a wee bit as the playoffs are here. So that could be a page that Joel Embiid might want to take out of Jimmy's book. But with Nurse, I think the big thing here is, and I alluded to it in the article as well, is there is a trust level, I believe, with Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse. But mutual trust and respect, I think, with those two. And I think that Morey also understands the value of the load management and how that could help Joel Embiid over the course of a 82-game season where, he's a guy who has an injury history. He's going to turn 30 years old here soon enough. And he's big. He's a big man. And we know historically that, those careers are shorter than others. So I think with all those things in mind, I think they're going to do what's best for Joel Embiid and what's best for the Sixers. So I'm not as worried about that. I guess I worry a little bit with James Harden if he is back, because James Harden is a guy who I don't know what he finished in minutes, but it was way higher than he probably should have under Doc Rivers. And that's because he is a guy who does not like to sit out, does not like to take those load management days. And if he plays, he wants to play a lot of minutes. So that's where I'd have some concern. Fred VanVleet is a name that we hear as a possible replacement. You look at what the kind of load he kind of shouldered while he was with the Raptors under Nick Nurse and the injuries he sustained. And if there's a reason I have pause for assigning a Fred VanVleet, it is that he has an injury history, and a lot of that could be because he played a ton of minutes. So it's a double-edged thing though too, Mark, because I think like one of the things I like about Nick Nurse is that he is flexible compared to, let's say, a Doc Rivers. But I think the one thing him and Doc Rivers have in common is when they trust a guy, they really trust the guy, and they tend not to trust other guys. So I think, yeah, that could be a possible blind spot and weakness for Nick Nurse that I hope that, working collaboratively with Daryl Morey, with whatever coaches he brings in, with the medical staff, they all find a nice compromise where he's playing guys enough to where they're winning games, and that he's not playing guys where he is, to what you said, running guys into the ground, which I think he kind of did at times in Toronto.
All right, so let's stay with Embiid. You touched on a couple of subjects there, but let's stay with Embiid for one second. When it comes to Embiid, is it a situation where you kind of have to save him from himself? Like, we know that you want to play all these minutes. We know you want to play all these games, but we also know you want to win a championship. And the best way to do that is maybe you're only playing. Maybe we're only locking you in for 70 games this season. Maybe we're only locking you in for 65 games this season. And the games that we do lock you into, you have a minute restrictions attached to it, depending on how the games are going. Do you think it's something like that they could use with Joel Embiid in order to almost save him from himself? And would he be open to it?
I think 65-ish is actually like that's where he's been around the last few years. And that feels like a pretty good number between 60 and 65. I know with some of the new rules with awards that might affect him in some regards, but he already won an MVP. He got his first team All-NBA. Like you said, the only other logical step now is a championship. And I think, again, just going back to the Butler stuff, Jimmy Butler doesn't, like, not to say he doesn't care about the regular season, but, like, obviously winning an MVP, being an all-star, being on an All-NBA team does not mean nearly as much to a guy like that as winning a championship does. And that's not to say I think Joel, because I think there's maybe some people who are maybe go a little too hard on Joel Embiid for that, saying like, oh, that's all he cared about. He just wanted to win the MVP. Well, no, I think he wanted to win the MVP and win a championship. But I think there is something to, like you said, the idea of, yeah, they got to protect him from himself a little bit because he does want to play. He doesn't like load management. He doesn't. And I always crack up when I see people kind of, say like, oh, this guy, he needs to play every night. This is terrible. And it's guys, like it's not him. Like he wants to be out there every night. I'm confident of that. He wants to, if he could play 82 games, he would. But I also think he's smart. And he listens to the medical staff more than he ever has. He listens to his body, I think, more than he ever has in recent years. So I think, again, it's certainly, and I know Sixers fans, that word collaborative is a frightening one, but I think in this instance, it is collaborative. It is Joel Embiid listening to his body, understanding when he should and shouldn't play. It's Nick Nurse understanding, looking for signs of seeing when he's maybe not quite himself. And of course, it's the medical staff and it's the front office stepping in and saying, hey, Joel, maybe we need to ease back and all that. And, either whether it's a minutes restriction thing, whether it's taking a couple games off. So it is a collaborative effort, and it all is the same goal. And that is to deliver the healthiest version of Joel Embiid into the playoffs for a long playoff run.
I couldn't agree with that more. The last thing, and you do talk about this in the article as well, you do write about this in the article, Nikola Jokic. It's funny how the mob is so fickle, and I am in this mob as well, that goes from, to overemphasize it, Joker sucks, to, man, Embiid needs to be more like Joker. So is Nick Nurse's style of offense, he gets a lot of talk about his defense, but offensively speaking, can he take a little Joker's game and put it in Embiid and see a little bit more of that facilitating from the center spot, from the 5 spot? Can we see that? Do you think we see that from Nick Nurse and Joel Embiid with these two working together?
Well, to start with Embiid, I know this guy watches so much basketball. Like that's like we've literally had, press conferences held up because he was finishing watching like a game and like he wanted to finish watching it before he came out and talked to us. Like that's a thing that's happened. So like this guy watches and consumes a ton of NBA basketball. So if you don't think he is sitting at home right now watching what Jokic is doing now into the NBA finals, like you're wrong. Like he's watching it. He sees it. So a part of him knows that this is not that he doesn't have to be Jokic. He doesn't have to be the point guard. He doesn't have to have 10 assists a game, but perhaps can he not lead the league in scoring and not score 33 and maybe go from like 4 assists to 6 or 7? Yeah, I think that's completely reasonable. And I think part of it is him. Like you've seen over the years how much better he's gotten with dealing with double teams, playing from the elbow, playing out of the post, and kind of doing more stuff. And you saw the way the Nets were so audacious in the first round with their double and triple teams. And the way he handled it, I thought he handled it pretty well, actually. So, yeah, I think from Joel's side of things, I think he knows that. And I think he can implement some of that into his game. And I think, yeah, with Nick Nurse, frankly, I mean, the Raptors offense, half-court offense, just hasn't been very good since Kawhi left. I mean, I think if you watch them, it's pretty evident. I think the numbers would back that up, too. With all that said, he hasn't had Joel Embiid. And if James Harden comes back, he hasn't had James Harden. He hasn't even had Tyrese Maxey. Pascal Siakam, really good player. An all-star caliber player would be good on any other team in the NBA. But, their half-court offense was really nothing to write home about under Nurse. So I am very curious to see what it looks like. Clearly he sold the Sixers on a plan to build around Joel Embiid and build things around him, I think offensively and defensively. So, yeah, I think Nurse was pretty upfront that he thinks that Joel Embiid is capable of this. And I believe to an extent he is as well. And I do think that could be, no matter if James comes back or not, I think that might be the Sixers' best path forward is Joel Embiid facilitating more, scoring a little less.
All right. You mentioned the name James Harden a bunch of times already. So I'm going to ask you this for a prediction and then what you want to see happen as someone that would obviously like to see the Sixers do well. Just tell me yes or no which way you're leaning. Are you leaning to your prediction James Harden comes back, yes or no?
I'm leaning towards he does, but
he does come back.
No sourcing, nothing, no inside information to back that up. Just a feeling, just your because gut. with my gut, with where I think Daryl Morey is, with where James Harden is, with Nick Nurse openly saying he wants him to come back. I have a feeling it is they want to not quite run it back, but I think that they would like James Harden to come back.
Okay. All right. So do you, as someone who would like to see this team do well, do you want to see James Harden back? Which way are you leaning right now?
I am leaning more towards the bring James Harden back. And this is why I know, and a lot of people are not going to be happy. And I'll start it with this.
All right, go for it.
I 100% understand why people don't want to bring him back. I get it. That Game 7 was horrendous. It was one of the most embarrassing losses I've seen in Philadelphia sports, which is saying so much because there have been a lot of those. But there's a flip side to this too. And I get the emotion of that Game 7 and I get how bad it was. Think back to Game 6, Mark. 5 minutes left in that game. I think it was 86-81. They very easily could have won that game and been in the Eastern Conference Finals if a couple shots go in. Now listen, it's not bad luck. They lost because they weren't the better team. The Boston Celtics were the better team. They won the 7-game series. No disputing that. But what I'm saying that is, and Morey put it this way in his press conference to end the season, they need to find a way to be 1 point better in one more game in that round, and then in order to go beyond that and hopefully win, 8 more games beyond that. So to me, if you bring James Harden back, yeah, do you want to give him that max deal? Of course you don't want to give him that max deal. You're going to try hard not to give him that max deal. But if you bring James Harden back, you make some other roster changes. You put Nick Nurse in over Doc Rivers, who I think we can all agree, Nick Nurse, an upgrade as a tactician, as a head coach over Doc Rivers, with those advantages, with the small roster advantages, with Nick Nurse as the advantage, that should give you enough to be a better team. Because the alternative of James Harden walking, and let's say you do some finagling and you bring a Fred VanVleet in, will you be competitive? Yes, you will be a very competitive basketball team, because you still have Joel Embiid, you still have Tyrese Maxey, and you get a pretty darn good player in VanVleet. You'll be competitive. But in my opinion, you will not be a championship team. So to me, that's why I'm saying I lean towards, if I'm the Sixers, I'd want to bring James Harden back.
All right. Now, I know everyone's still trying to figure out what the hell's going on with the CBA in terms of learning the language and everything. So I know it could be a bit confusing and convoluted, but is there any way that this helps the Sixers with the way that the money has to be spread out, talking about 2 stars versus 3 stars? Is there any way that helps with Tobias Harris or James Harden or Tyrese Maxey's rookie deal or anything like that? Like, what do you know about the CBA? Does it hurt or help the Sixers?
I once described the NBA CBA as a Rubik's Cube from hell. So there's that. No, but I think it's like anything else. Like like all the details we've seen coming out, it really seems like it benefits the teams as opposed to the players.
Okay.
And it hurts the teams that really want to spend, who the Sixers, you would put them in that bracket of a team that wants to spend, because that those tax aprons, man, like they really do punish teams if you go beyond. Like it costs a lot of money. The Warriors are a team that famously didn't care about the aprons, spending way over. They didn't care. They wanted to win a championship. Their ownership group was very aggressive in not caring about that kind of thing. They might care a little bit more because every team has a cutoff, right? Like, yes, I get all of these guys are billionaires. They have a lot of money, but everybody has a cutoff. You can't just spend endless money. So this might make those owners, that number might come down as far as the limit because of those. So that's kind of, big picture. That's the way I see it, is that it's going to hurt teams a little bit or hurt players a little bit and help teams, especially the lower market teams. Now, as far as the Sixers specifically, I know our Brian Toporek for Liberty Bars wrote a really good piece today outlining how it could help them move Tobias Harris, because now Tobias Harris suddenly is an expiring contract at a high number. So might somebody look to offload some smaller contracts that are for multiple years in order to gain flexibility next offseason? That's very possible. I know, like a team like the Dallas Mavericks, maybe they're a team that, they have Tim Hardaway Jr., they have Davis Bertans, they have multiple guys that have a couple years left but don't make as much money, and maybe they look to Tobias and say, hey, let's take a flyer on Tobias Harris for a year, and if it doesn't work out, oh well, we have whatever $40 million in cap space we can look to spend to help out Luka and Kyrie Irving. Now, the one thing you touched on that I thought was interesting too, it does seem like now this new CBA is leaving room for teams to have 2 stars and not 3. And that, again, that could potentially hurt the Sixers because, like you just talked about, Tyrese Maxey is eligible for an extension in July. Whether he gets it or not right now, I don't know. It would help the Sixers flexibility-wise if they waited and made him a restricted free agent. But at the same time, he could become an all-star this year, and then that pretty much guarantees he is getting that max deal. So it depends kind of on your perspective in that regard. I don't know how much it hurts or helps with James Harden because the team that clearly seems like his biggest suitor is the Rockets, and they have cap room for days and days and days, so they're fine in that regard. So I'm not sure it affects them there. But, yeah, I mean, it's going to hurt them in some regards, but as far as the Tobias Harris stuff, yeah, it could actually wind up helping them in getting off of that contract and maybe getting smaller contracts, and those could be more maneuverable down the road.
Gotcha. Last thing for you, Paul, I was looking through a checklist. I really like the Nick Nurse deal. I don't want James Harden back. I want to focus on Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, and I want to see Embiid become a little bit more of a facilitator. I think you have realistic numbers there, talking about 4 assists to 6 or 7. That'd be nice. But they are going to need help. It can't just be Embiid, and it can't just be Harden, or excuse me, Maxey. So is there anyone in free agency, and I know there's no superstar there, but is there anyone in free agency you'd like the Sixers to go after? You mentioned Fred VanVleet. Anybody else that you think could come in and have a big impact on this Sixers team that you not only would like to see, but you also think there's some likelihood to it?
This free agent market it's just not great. Just to put it simply, you have Harden, you have Middleton. They have no shot really at Middleton. That's not a realistic thing for happen. Anything that they can offer, the Bucks can offer. So he's probably not going to be a thing. I mean, VanVleet is the guy that just does make the most sense because clearly he has a great relationship with Nick Nurse. So he could want to go to Philadelphia as a free agent. And if that happens, as we've seen in the past, the Sixers would need a sign and trade of some kind, either with Houston, with Harden, or with the Raptors, with VanVleet to make it all work money-wise, or they can move off Tobias's money, and that could make things a little bit easier. But something would need to happen to make – but the bottom line is, in a situation like that, if a guy really wants to be somewhere, like if VanVleet really does want to be with the Sixers to play for Nick Nurse, to play next to Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, it'll happen. Like, he'll make it happen. The sign and trade will happen one way or another. In a vacuum, I love Fred VanVleet. I think he's a really good player, and I think he would be a nice. He's clearly not a 1-for-1 replacement. He's not James Harden. I mean, he's just not. He's a borderline all-star player. And could that catapult? Could that put them in the conversation to be, I don't know, a top 4 team in the East? Yeah, I think so. I think that's a reasonable thing. If VanVleet is is his optimal self. The issue is I don't know that he is because he has had injury issues in the past. I don't know what his contract's going to look like, how prohibitive that's going to be. I'm not as worried about his size. I know some people are, but I think him and Maxey in Nick Nurse's system, they can make it work. I think there is a path to that, especially with Joel Embiid protecting the rim. I think there is a way to do that. So Van Vliet, I think, would be a solid, if they swing and miss on Harden, if Harden walks, I think Van Vliet would be a solid replacement. Other than that, man, I have zero interest in D'Angelo Russell. I've seen that thrown around. Just no interest at all in a guy like that. I think he is a regular season player, and whatever you have to give him, it's going to be too much, just speaking frankly. So yeah, I mean, Van Vliet would be the guy that would be next on my list. I mean, could you offer, it's going to depend how things shake out. Like if Harden does come back and they kind of re-sign the guys who are their own free agents, that might open up that non-taxpayer mid-level, the taxpayer mid-level exception. And, could that could maybe open up to a guy like a Bruce Brown who's playing well for the Nuggets, but I think the Nuggets would very much like to have Bruce Brown back with how well he's playing. And it seems like he would probably like to be back. So it really, it all hinges on what Harden does. It hinges on if they can move Tobias Harris. Because then the other thing too, Mark, if they move Tobias Harris and move him for a couple pieces that maybe fit better and that maybe just you get more depth that way, that's a possibility too. So there's just so many moving parts that it's really not going to reveal itself until we know whether or not Harden's back, until we know what Tobias Harris's future is.
Okay, fair enough. Tonight's the game 3 of the NBA Finals. Who do you think wins the finals overall? Who do you like?
I still like the Nuggets, just because I think they're so deep, and I what Jokic does. I think what Miami's done against Jokic has been really smart, which is make him a scorer, which sounds crazy because the guy can score. But I think when he's scoring, it kind of does hurt their offense a little bit and bogs down their offense as a whole because he's such a good effective passer and because Denver has such good shooting. But I still, Jamal Murray was kind of quiet in game 2, just missed that last 3 to send it to overtime. But I think he's a hell of a player too, and I think he'll be heard from as the series goes on. So I just think I do believe that Denver is the better team. Now, with that said, Miami, I think maybe hasn't been the better team for a lot of games, and they've still won them because they are tough. They are so well coached. Eric Spoelstra is a magician. Like what he does and how he schemes. Like you talk about a guy like Nick Nurse and the coaching advantage he adds. Eric Spoelstra's on a different stratosphere from almost any other coach. He's just so good at what he does. So I still pick Denver, but they have their absolute hands full with this Miami team, with Jimmy Butler, with guys like Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin, who are really having just coming out parties, and with Spoelstra at the helm. It's going to be a really tough series.
Gotcha. Paul Hudrick, Liberty Baller, is doing a fantastic job. Make sure you guys check out his article on Nick Nurse, his 5 takeaways from his press conference, as well as follow all things Paul Hudrick when it comes to the Twitterverse at Paul Hudrick. Paul, hello again to Miles. Great to meet your mom virtually, and great to talk to you as always, my friend.
Likewise. She is thrilled. She's probably going to be buzzing about this for days, Mark. She's absolutely tickled.
Thank her again for the espresso cup that she gifted me so many years ago. I haven't forgotten. Paul Hudrick, Liberty Ballers. Thanks, Paulie.
You got him, Mark. Anytime, man.
My thanks to Mr. Paul Hudrick. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not kidding. I am saying this with every ounce of respect, okay? Beautiful woman. Paul Hudrick's mom, beautiful lady. She's been a sweetheart to me. As I said during the interview, I wasn't about to bother her to come on the show when she had little Miles, her grandbaby, in her arms. And by the way, she's a mum-mum. She's a mum-mum. I had a mum-mum. My kids now have mum-mum. That's the weirdest thing. One of the weirdest things about having kids is when they call your mom whatever you called your grandmother. That is weird that my mom is now mum-mum. My brother and I were talking about that the other day because we just had this big family reunion. And it's just weird. Like all the kids are calling. They're like, oh, wow. Because we had our grandmother for our entire lives up until like 4 years ago. But yeah, Paul's mom, lovely lady, lovely, and just an absolute sweetheart when it comes to how she's been supportive of me in my career. We're going to get to a chat check a little bit later. We're going to do our sponsors. We're going to do the morning rush first because, oh, baby, I want to make sure I get a lot in there, and then we're going to go to the chat check because I want to make sure everything's put on a tee for you fine people in our chat check. So let me tell you right now. Oh, and just one more thing on Paul. Fred VanVleet coming to Philadelphia. I'm all for it, man. I do not, as I've said many times, I do not want James Harden back. I don't want to run it back with a crew that now twice hasn't done it. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's move on and let's turn the page. I want to see what Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey can do. Now, I realize that for the Sixers to have a chance to get out of the second round of the playoffs, just to start at that low bar again, Tyrese Maxey needs to have a Jalen Hurts type of jump forward in his season, in his career. He obviously has more. He has more experience under his belt than Jalen Hurts did before Jalen Hurts took his giant leap forward. So we've seen him a lot more than what we have seen from Jalen Hurts. Now it's a matter of whether or not he can take that same leap forward, where he could go from a nice piece to have, and this is now just applying to Tyrese Maxey, a nice piece to have, to he could be an all-star. Needs to go from that, which it has already, I think, to, he's an all-star. Not he can be one, not he's a all-star caliber player, but he needs to be an all-star. At the least. I won't throw his name into the MVP conversation just yet like Jalen Hurts did, but, whatever. Let me tell you about the great people at Manscaped. Manscaped.com, the leader in below-the-waist grooming. Ladies and gentlemen, go to Manscaped.com. Use promo code Farzy for 20% off and free shipping. They are incredible. They have their best hygiene bundle yet, their Platinum Package 4.0, which includes their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer as well as their Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer. And they come with skin-safe technology that helps you reduce the risk of nicks so you can manscape with confidence and comfort. So try Manscaped at manscaped.com. How about Freestone Farm CBD? FreestoneFarmCBD.com. You'll love their tropical tasting Bayox that clocks into the chart-topping 24.1%. And Super CBD, which is half Hindu, Kush, and 21%. Genetics of these guys are off the charts. So try Freestone Farm CBD at FreestoneFarmCBD.com. And how about PHL Sports Station, Philadelphia Sports Station, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs. That's PHLSportsStation.com. Before we get to the chat check, we're going to flip it around. Your Morning Rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars, SkyMotorcars.com. Because, ladies and gentlemen, in this Morning Rush, we got Lane Johnson, baby, talking about his recovery from the abductor surgery, okay? We got Lane Johnson talking about Cam Jurgens, and we got Lane Johnson talking about Tyler Steed, ladies and gentlemen. He's the first person to mention Tyler Steed. He was asked about the right guard position, which I think most people, myself included, are just going, that's Cam Jurgens' job. Cam Jurgens got to do it. Cam Jurgens' job. No problem. Cam Jurgens. Lane Johnson's like, Tyler Steed. Like, what? I'm sorry? He doesn't mention him by name, but he talks about the competition, which I guess you have to do as a teammate. But we'll get to Lane Johnson in the Morning Rush there. We'll get to this Live Golf PGA Tour thing. I am a hack golfer. Let me just put this all out on the table. All this. I've been following the Live Golf controversy over the last year from afar, just kind of knowing that it's happening. The PGA Tour members are running to Live Golf, cashing a nice big fat check. And what's his name? Jay Monahan, the director of the PGA Tour, the director of the PGA Association, whatever, PGA. Yeah. He is like, over the last year, just thrown all sorts of criticism at anyone that wants to go to Live. So we're going to get to that conversation briefly. We'll touch on that. And the Philadelphia Flyers, Danny Briere, Danny Deals, baby. Ivan Provorov gets traded, and the Flyers get a nice little haul in return. Let's start it off with Lane Johnson in this sport. And the NBA Finals tonight, of course. Lane Johnson, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday talking about his recovery while addressing the media.
What did that look like? Like how fresh off of surgery?
Yeah, it's usually like the first day of surgery. The next day, you're supposed to walk a certain amount. I had trouble, but a lot of guys do. Try to walk like at least half a mile or something the first day. Last thing they want you to do is like get surgery and not move and kind of heal up stiff. That's the worst fear is, healing up stiff. And when you do that, you might be a lot of scar tissue broken up later. So I think the more progressive you are early in the rehab, the less stuff you have to deal with, in the later half of it. But I think with the surgery, I think the chance of return is like around 1%, or that's what Dr. Myers was saying. So relatively low. So yeah, after that, after the first couple of weeks, it wasn't too bad.
For me, 1% chance of retiring it. Phenomenal. They're all stitched up and ready to go as Lane Johnson. Now, what he was talking about earlier in the press conference was how he has been cleared for quite some time. So this is not a concern. He did acknowledge that he's been cleared for a long time, so he's not having a problem with it anymore. He did say that it was an accelerated rate of recovery. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing for Lane Johnson. Now, this is where it gets interesting. He got asked about the right guard position and what he wants to see for the right guard position. And he didn't jump to Juergens, which I thought was interesting. It was definitely worth an eyebrow raise. I guess as a teammate, as I said, you don't want to just exclude somebody else. But let's not forget Tyler Steen is a left tackle that the Eagles drafted to play potentially right guard and then maybe tackle again later. But here is Lane Johnson answering the question. So what do you want and what do you see in the right guard position in the near future?
Yeah, you just got to – it's all about consistency. I think, with both these guys coming in, they're, new to the position. And really it goes down to angles, it goes down to communication, a lot of it, making sure everybody gets the call. But like Landon was saying, it's totally different, guard and tackle. Tackle, you have a lot more space to operate. Guard is – you're kind of fighting in the phone booth. You obviously got to be strong, stout, and, really good balance of body control. But the communication factor is big, just echoing all the calls and making sure everybody's on the same page.
Make no mistake about it. Cam Juergens is going to be your right guard. I am 100% sure of that. But when you're talking about communication there, Cam Juergens is the guy that is going – he has the upper hand. He's already been here for a year. Tyler Steen is learning a new position. He was a left tackle. He was a tackle at Vanderbilt. He was a left tackle for every game that he played with Alabama as their starting left tackle. And the Eagles drafted him to be a guard. So I like Lane Johnson being the good teammate and saying that there's some kind of actual competition here. I don't see there being much of a competition. Hey, if there is, that means Steen is going to be one hell of a right guard because he beat out a guy that's already been here for a year and a guy that's been an interior offensive lineman, which at least helps, like I was talking about yesterday. I thought it was interesting because Lane, during his press conference, a couple of the things that he got into that I'll talk about in a second. But one of the things he did talk about was the fighting in a phone booth analogy that I brought up yesterday. So I think this is Juergens' job to lose. But I just found it interesting that when he was asked about the right guard, what is he looking for? He didn't just talk about Cam Juergens. He brought in the rookie, Tyler Steen, who was drafted out of Alabama. So I thought that was interesting from Lane Johnson. The other thing was when he did talk about Cam Juergens, he talked about basically how strong the guy is.
He's so damn strong. I don't think he's front squatted close to 550 the other day. So just having a guy that's strong. And, the thing about him being 6'3" or whatever, I feel like he has natural leverage on some of the defenders, low center of gravity, so he's able to get under guys, and obviously has that power. So the more reps that he gets, the better he's going to be. But as far as the explosion and the athletic traits, he's unbelievable.
When you're on the field.
I look forward to seeing that strength at the right guard position for the entire season. That was more or less, I think, his endorsement of Cam Juergens, as most people are talking about, whether it's Jason Kelce or it's Landon Dickerson. Landon Dickerson talking about playing the guard position. He played left guard, obviously, for the Eagles last year. So that's impressive. One thing I don't think I've ever heard an athlete say when asked about his most recent contract, he hopes it's his last one. The Eagles restructured Lane Johnson's deal, gave him a contract extension to boot. He even said yesterday he got a little bit more money. The team saved money on the cap, so it seemed to make sense for everybody. He was asked about this being, do you envision this as being your last contract in the NFL? You're going to be 37 years old when this is done. Do you imagine this to be your last one? He basically said that he's got a couple more years left in him, and he hopes it's his last one because he doesn't want to be old trying to play right guard in the NFL. And you very rarely hear players so candid about it. Like, you'll hear guys hint towards the end. That is it's the same thing, hinting towards retirement, okay? I don't want to think about Lane Johnson retiring. I don't want to think about Jason Kelce retiring, but it's there at some point. Nobody's playing forever. Even the guys that play for a long time don't really play for a long time. When you think about other avenues of business people could go into, and they do that job for 50 years, these guys are playing for maybe, if they're lucky, 15, maybe unbelievably 20. Just doesn't happen. But Lane Johnson saying, yeah, I hope this is my last one because I don't want to be old at the end of it and keep playing. I'll say it to you like this. I've seen some great players. I hate the term hang on. Because, man, if I had athletic ability, if I was an athlete, and let's just go down this avenue for a second, and this is what I think. Whenever I see, the most recent example is Aaron Rodgers, who's still playing at a high level, going to the Jets. Brett Favre going to the Jets. My man Trey Thomas going to the Chargers. John Runyon going to the Chargers. Whenever you see people, athletes, hang on, hell yeah. I would do the same thing. Hold on a second. You mean to tell me I can still play the game I love? I know I'm not at the level I used to be, but I can still play? I can still be around it? Yeah. Oh, it's sad. I don't think it's sad. They're doing something they love to do. What's sad about that? Well, they're not as good as they used to be. Yeah, it's called getting older. If they can still be out there on the field. Now, there's other guys. Mike Schmidt's the perfect example that when he couldn't get to that ground ball, I think he was. I know he retired in San Diego, but physically the city of San Diego while still playing for the Phillies, obviously. But he couldn't get to a ground ball, and he's like, I can't do it. I'm out. I can't play at the high level. I'm out. I understand that too. But to say it's sad to see a guy hang on and play, well, he's doing what he loves to do. If you were a fan of Tosh.0, Daniel Tosh has a great bit on quarterbacks, where he's talking about how, like, hold on, what's the minimum salary for a veteran quarterback? $800,000. Yeah, I'll do that too. $800,000 to hold a clipboard for 17 games. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll hop too. But yeah, no, when Lane's talking about it like that, I mean, we'll see when he's at the end of the contract. We'll see when he is 37. Hey, Lane, you still think he'll play? No, I'm old now. No, maybe he'll hang on. Maybe he'll sign a 1-year deal to go play with some other team that needs a right tackle for a year, and he'll see what he can give and all that. But yeah, I don't even want to go down that road because I don't want to think about the turnover on this offensive line. But I did find it interesting that he talked about Steen. I did find it interesting that he brought up Steen. I mentioned I was going to get to E.J. Ellis, the linebackers coach for Nakobe Dean. Really, all he said that's of significance is when he talked to Nakobe Dean, he talked to all his linebackers, and when he talked to Nakobe Dean was like, yeah, great. Can I get my playbook? And he said what he took away from his brief conversation with Nakobe Dean was absolute student of the game. The guy just craves knowledge. When I talk about Nakobe Dean, I talk about the mechanical engineering major. I talk about the guy that might want to do pre-med. Dabbled in pre-med, like I dabbled in volleyball in college when it came to a curriculum. What do you call it? An elective. But he just is a student of the game and really wants to learn. So that's what I took away from that conversation. The Philadelphia Flyers. What? Are we going to talk about the Flyers for a second? We're going to talk about the Flyers for a second. Danny Deals, Danny Briere, Ivan Provorov, adios. He goes to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Hayden Hodgson goes, and Kevin Connaughton goes to the other team, that LA Kings there. The Flyers, they don't have to pay you 30%. 30% of the contract is being taken over by the Kings for Ivan Provorov. And the Flyers, in return, get Cal Peterson, a goalie, 28 years old, hasn't played all that much for a 28-year-old. Sean Walker, defenseman, and Helge Grums, who's also a defenseman, but he's a prospect. And most importantly, the Flyers get the 22nd overall pick in the upcoming NHL draft. So now the Flyers have the 7th overall pick in the upcoming draft and the 22nd overall pick in the upcoming NHL draft. And then they also get 2 future second rounders. Danny Deals. Love it. Love it. Blow it up. Not a fan of Ivan Provorov. See ya. Carter Hart. That's going to be a tough one. All reports are out there with Carter Hart being dangled out there. I think it was Darren Drager of TSN saying that the Flyers are having their conversations. Now, Danny Briere was on WIP recently, and he had talked about the idea of trading Carter Hart. And I know when you're a GM and you say that you're listening to offers or that you'll have to listen, which was the quote, he'll have to listen. I always find it interesting when people run with that. Because what that means, what they say is I have to listen. So in other words, he has to do his job. Whenever somebody calls about a trade, he can go, hello? And then they go, we want to trade for Carter Hart. Click. No, that's not his job. He has to go, oh, really? What are you willing to give up? Everything. Okay, then I guess I'll do it. I almost knocked out a light. For the people on the podcast, I hit a light. Anyway, so when Danny Briere said that, I went, well, that means he has to do his job. But when they admit to doing their job, that means they're really doing their job. They're really listening to offers. And apparently right now, the Flyers are gathering information from around the NHL, gathering information from potential suitors, and they will most likely trade Carter Hart. That is what I am taking away from the Ivan Provorov trade, the fact that they already pulled the trigger on that, and the fact that they are listening to offers actively about Carter Hart. Now let me tell you how I feel about it. I'm fine with it. They now have 2 first-round picks in this upcoming NHL draft. If you're going to start over and you're going to blow it up, you got to get them first-round picks, and they got themselves some first-round picks. It also gives them some flexibility. If they can move up in this potential draft to get someone that they really want, then obviously it gives them that flexibility. It's the same strategy in every draft. The other thing that it does is if they do trade Carter Hart, I think they're going to get a haul for him. They're going to get something better than what they got for Ivan Provorov. That's for damn sure. I've told you guys many times, I grew up such a huge Flyers fan, and I'm still such a Flyers fan, and it sucks to see what the franchise has become. I have confidence in Keith Elaine Jones to help turn this around. And I do have confidence in Danny Briere. The thing is, they can't do what Hextall did, which was do some kind of half-hearted tank or half-hearted process, to use that word. They got to go all in on it one way or the other. And I think the only thing they can do is go all in on being terrible for a while and then build this thing back up into something special. And when they do build it back up into something special, which I have confidence in, I think you have, and I know people criticize him for this, but that Ed Snyder mentality, that era of hockey, which was everything we knew up until a couple years ago, it'll still be there because of Danny Briere and because of Keith Jones, because they know they know the tradition, and the tradition was a tradition of at least trying and working your ass off to win. They didn't do it, unfortunately, after the 70s, which we all know, but I still miss that mentality. I still miss the mentality of looking at the Flyers thinking every year, oh man, maybe this is it. Maybe they do it this year. I know it's not going to be for a lack of effort by Ed Snyder. So, and yes, that mentality got him in trouble at times. It led them to where they are right now, unfortunately. But there's been other GMs, whether it been Hextall, Holmgren, Hextall, Chuck Fletcher. It's led him down a bad path. Now, hopefully, Danny Briere has the cojones to really commit to it. And he starts with this Ivan Provorov trade. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not a huge golfer by any means, but here's the thing that is just going around in my brain about this Live Golf and PGA Tour merger that was announced yesterday. Like I said, I had been following it, not religiously. I know of the controversy surrounding the Saudi investment group with Live Golf and the political background involved there. I try not to follow money because if you follow money, oftentimes it doesn't end up where you end up is not a good place. But what has been said about Live Golf, what has been said about golfers that have gone over to Live Golf, what the PGA Tour golfers are saying now about the merger, it has been a wild ride to follow that. And when I saw the merger announced yesterday, and they're going to be going under a name that is yet to be determined, My first thought was, if you're Jay Monahan and you're the PGA Tour director, I guess, commissioner, I don't even know what his proper title is. And a year ago, you're talking about 9/11, and you're talking about how you know families. And the 9/11 Survivors Fund, what they have come out and said about it, they're appalled, as one would assume. But for Jay Monahan to go out there and talk about how he's got close families that he's friends with that lost someone in 9/11, say that a year ago, invoke that. And then also in the same interview, talk about how PGA Tour members, when trying to make a decision about whether or not they should go play for LIV or not, have you ever had to apologize for being a part of the PGA? To invoke that, those two things, and then a year later, you're now partnering with these people? Seems rather contradictory, is rather contradictory, is actually appalling. And then I heard the term used by Kyle Brandt, former sports executive, behind the scenes guy, front office guy. I heard him use the phrase bought golf. And that's really what I was hoping I wouldn't hear. I understand a partnership, but what this seems like, when LIV wasn't really competing on the global stage with the PGA Tour, all of a sudden they're a partner? Well, that means some money got thrown around without question. And Kyle Brandt used the phrase, they bought golf. Okay. That's where we're at right now. If you're a big golf fan, that's where we're at right now. Let's get into the chat check, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about some other things here. Mike Fuji on the Farzy Show YouTube channel. What's going on, Mike Fuji? Good morning. Happy hump day. April. Good morning, April. Mally. Paul, hide your wives, Hudrick. Mally, did you notice the haircut? Paulie got another haircut. April, what's going on? Morning, everybody. Smoking. Oh, yeah, it's the smoke. Allergies are rough right now. Yeah, I've been I didn't even realize until somebody mentioned it last night in the Phillies postgame show about what was going on in Canada. That Jersey's got fires going on too. What the hell, man? T-Bro, what's up, T-Bro? That dang Canadian smoke gets you every time. Oh, PJ, I did see that in Yankee Stadium last night. That was pretty bonkers. It just looked ominous would be the word. Sean Gillespie, what's going on? April, PJ, yes, it was crazy. Felt bad for the people in the upper deck. Yeah, certainly. Mihai Sanchez, morning all. Sometimes Schwarb bombs are all you need. By the way, anyone ever have the Schwarb Fest or Schwarb bomb at Wawa? I have not. It's been a minute since I've been to Wawa. April, I won't be sad if Harden is gone. I will not be sad if Harden is gone. Tavita! Good morning, Tavita. Hello. Tavita's doing well. That's good. Sean Gillespie, what's going on? Sean, welcome back. Tavita, everyone's welcome back. It's sad to say when it'll be a sad day when Kelsey and Lane retire. I agree, Sean Gillespie. Tavita, yeah, I can't say it. Sad. Oh, yeah. They made millions doing what they love. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're saying it's sad in terms of guys holding on to keep playing. Sean Gillespie, you are an athlete, a free throw specialist. Thank you, Sean. Knowing I can sink free throws like nobody's business. I'm a one-time professional athlete. I did play one game with the Harlem Globetrotters, so I don't want to brag. It will be a sad day for Eagles fans. You're absolutely right, Sean. You're absolutely right. Let's go over to the Jacob Media YouTube channel. What's going on there, Jacob Media people? 76ers. Unfortunately, JoJo is not a champion. That is true. He is not a champion. You know, there's a point where, like, Dirk wasn't a champion, and Dirk became a champion. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Jordan wasn't a champion in the 80s. He had to wait till the 90s for that to happen. So there's that. Anyway, Babs, what's up, Babs? Barbara Carroll, Farzy, love your sport. Oh, God bless you. Babs says, I like the Flyers trade. We were going nowhere with Ivan. We got a nice haul for him. You're absolutely right, Babs. Danny Deals, baby. Let's start it up. Danny Deals. Love the trade. Absolutely love the trade. Thanks, everybody. You guys are great. Be back with you guys after the Phillies game today. 6:05 start time for Phillies postgame. And then at noon today, me, Derek Gunn, on the Jacob Media YouTube channel. Me and Gunner will be hanging out. I'll be filling in on Sports Take for my friend Rob Ellis. Look forward to having some fun with you guys there. And I'll be checking out the chat as that is going on. Jim Hyde produced program, did a wonderful job as per usual. My name is Mark Farzetta. This is the Farzy Show presented by Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Talk to you guys. Well, hey, no, I'll talk to you at noon today. And then I'll talk to you after the Phillies complete the sweep of the Tigers. So there you go. Have a great day. See you guys later. Bye.